Hi, hope everyone's doing well. Yesterday I had a knock on my door and a mystery package was delivered at my doorstep. And what do you know? But it was this lovely PR package from Rare Beauty and I'm so excited. I've been closely testing these out for 24 hours and I think I have very concrete thoughts on the formula, colors, and the launch in general. But if you're new here, I'm Kate, I'm 33 and I have a full-time corporate job, which means I don't have a lot of time to do really creative makeup looks. I don't have a lot of time to spend on my beauty routine. I like products that I can just kind of slap on and go and know that they look good, products that have great formulas, products that practically do the work for me. And I also like to have a more minimal collection for a YouTuber, so I'm very picky about what products I love, and hopefully that helps you save money. So if all that sounds good, I hope you'll subscribe, and now let's get into the review. As always, we're first going to talk about the claims. These are $20, they come in 4 shades, and the website says, treat lips to more love. This unique gel formula transforms on contact into a tinted oil for the comfiest kiss of color and shine your lips have ever felt. Never sticky and loves to be layered. Give it one swipe for a slick wash of color or layer up for a bold, juicy pop. They have jojoba and sunflower seed oil, and it says that they gently plump the lips for a fuller, healthier looking pout. If you're new here, I have very, very high standards about lip products. I like something that is thicker and cushiony, more nourishing. So lip oils generally don't work for me. I find lip oils to kind of settle into the vertical lines on my lips. They feel like they're so thin and runny, they just kind of slide around and they just evaporate from my lips and don't provide any real hydration. So I like something that's like a liquid lip balm, something more occlusive, something that really coats the lips and adds an occlusive layer. And now let's get into the swatches. So this is the shade Serenity, which is described as a warm rose. If I had to come up with a description myself, I would have described it as a terracotta rose, so very similar. Little bit of peach, little bit of brown, little bit of pink. It's just a perfect kind of shade that I think a lot of people will really gravitate towards. Definitely gonna be a crowd favorite. And here's what the stain looks like when you blot it off. I think it's a beautiful color. I can see myself reaching for this all the time. This is the shade Honesty and it's described as a nude brown. I would say it's most comparable to nearly neutral from Rare Beauty's Glossy Balm line, so I think a lot of people are gonna like this one. And you'll notice that it kind of applies with more of a white pigment. It seems a lot brighter, and then as you blend it in, it just melts into your lips and it becomes almost warmer maybe. It's difficult to describe because I'm not exactly sure what it's doing, and I know Rare Beauty describes it as a gel transforming to an oil, but that's not at all what it feels like to me. It just feels like a gel the whole time, which I really like. But when you're actually looking at the color, it does seem to transform from like something creamy to something more kind of gel-like and one with your lips. So here's what Honesty looks like when you blot it off and you're just left with the stain. This one's the shade Joy, and the brand describes this as a muted peach, but I would argue that this is much more vivid than that. On my skin at least, it does appear to be quite vivid, and I think it would work pretty well if you have light to medium skin, maybe even deep skin, because it is quite bright on me. And I also find this shade to be one that stains the longest, probably because it is more pigmented than the others that I've tried. And here's what Joy looks like when you blot it off and you're left with just the stain. This is the shade Happy, which is described as a cool pink, and it might look that way when it first goes on. As you can see in the application clip, it like goes on super creamy, but then it totally blends into your lips and like melts into this warm pink color. So it does not look like the way it's described. And here's what Happy looks like when the gloss fades. You're left with just a beautiful warm pink. This is the shade Hope, which is described as a nude mauve, but honestly, this one looks a little bit more like a cool pink than Happy does, especially when you first apply it. Truthfully, on the lips, Happy and Hope look almost identical. So if you were thinking of picking up both, you do not need both. Right now, as I'm looking at them side by side, I honestly can't really tell a difference between the two. So here are the two shades. Happy is right here, and it's described as a cool pink. Hope is right here, and it's described as a nude mauve. I don't think the descriptions are right for either of those. This Happy seems like a warm pink, pretty standard, like I don't think you can argue that. And Hope is actually the one that seems more like a cool pink to me. Very interesting. And here's what Hope looks like when you remove the gloss and you're left with the stain underneath. Looks exactly like the stain that Happy left behind, although my lips at this point might be a little bit stained, but I'm doing my best to kind of reset them in between each color. This is the shade Delight, which is described as a rose brown, and I totally agree with that. If I had to come up with a description myself, I would call it a rosewood. Totally the kind of color I can see a lot of people really loving, as it's one of the more muted shades. And I feel like if this were from a K-beauty brand, they would call it Fig. I feel like every rosewood shade from the K-beauty brands always has like a fig thrown in there somewhere. And so whether you want to call it a fig or a rosewood, I think it's a shade that would definitely be pretty universally flattering. This is the shade Wonder, which is described as a rose mauve. I feel like every person has a different definition of what mauve is. You just never know what you're getting when you get a mauve. To me, it's something that's more cool toned and has a little bit more purple and a little bit more gray in it. This to me is more just like a warm berry, very comparable to the Fit Glow lip serum in the shade Gospel, which is by far my favorite from that brand. This is definitely a Kate kind of shade. I love something that's a little pinky, a little berry, that looks like that kind of bitten, flushed shade. So to me, it's not a rose mauve, it's more of a warm berry. And this is what Wonder looks like when you remove the glossiness and you're left with just the warm berry stain. And the last shade is Affection, and it's the deepest shade. They describe this as a muted berry. Instead, I would personally describe this as cool berry. I think that distinction is important to make versus something like a warm berry, like in the shade Wonder. This is definitely more purple. I gotta say, this was the sleeper hit for me. I love this color. This is the shade that I've been wearing nonstop since I got this PR package. And normally I don't go for darker lips, but this formula is just so beautiful and comfortable. And as you can see, just with one application, the pigment is so smooth and even. A lot of times darker colors on my pale ass lips just look really patchy and unnatural, and sometimes they're just like really hard to maintain. But because this stains and the formula is so beautiful and the pigment is totally even and smooth, it makes me want to reach for, you know, darker colors like this. And because of that, I just feel like Rare Beauty should do an expansion of this line at some point and add some deeper shades, especially because I feel like once they touch the lips, they do kind of sheer out as they transform a little bit. So I feel like we could get some richer true reds. We could get a bright blue-based cherry red. We could get, you know, a bright deep orange. I would love to see some richer browns in the line as well. Something like a cool toned like Merit 1990 or Merit Lavenue, a berry brown. Like you really could fill out this shade range with some deeper shades, I think, because a lot of these are just like popsicle pops of color, but this one you can really see how great the darker shades could look. So I just hope that this is a hit and that then they can use that as an excuse to give us some more colors. Okay, there are 4 shades that I think look very similar. This is the shade Delight, which is that rosewood color I was talking about. This is the shade Wonder. This is Happy, and then this is Hope. They describe Wonder here as a rose mauve, but again, I would describe this as a warm berry, or even like a pink with a hint of berry. And then I think that Delight is in its own category. It just in certain lights looks like it's more pink. Happy though is so close to Wonder. It's just that Wonder has more berry. Happy is more of a bright kind of medium warm pink. And then Hope is a little bit cooler and a little bit lighter of a pink. And now let me show you how they stain. So as you can see, the lighter shades here don't stain as much, and the darker shades have a little bit more pigment left behind. So first things first, these are not a lip oil, not even close to a lip oil. I think what Rare Beauty did is they probably were already in development of this product. My friend Nick brought up a really great point. She said that she thinks Rare Beauty was probably already in product development for this, and then they saw how massive lip oils were getting, and so they kind of tweaked the language a little bit and said, you know, instead of calling it like a gel stain like they may have otherwise, they are now calling it a gel to oil formula, and so they could get away with marketing it as a lip oil. But I just want to sort of manage your expectations here. These are not a lip oil, and that made me very happy. I was so pleasantly surprised that these are really just a jelly-like glossy stain. I know Amanda Z talked about this on YouTube, Glitter Goblin on Instagram, Casually Extra on Instagram. They are basically a K-beauty glossy lip stain. So if you really wanted a lip oil, you might be disappointed. But if you're like me and you like something that's a little bit thicker, a little more long lasting, then this is a really pleasant surprise. Personally, for me, I have a hard time with K-beauty stains because I find that they are either so incredibly fragranced that I can't use them, or I find that the pops of color are just too bright for me. So I have yet to find a perfect K-beauty glossy stain, and if you have a recommendation for one that is fragrance free and comes in some more muted shades, please let me know below and I would love to place an order. But in the meantime, a great reference point is the Romand Juicy Lasting Tints. Very, very similar formula, although I decluttered mine because the color was just really different from the website. But if you've tried those, then you basically know what the Rare Beauty lip oils are. And what's unique about these to me is that they have no fragrance and no taste whatsoever, but they have a cooling effect on the lips. Normally, I don't like products that are cooling or tingling because I find that menthol really dries out my lips. I have very sensitive skin, I have a sensitive nose, and all of it goes back to a chronic condition I have called EDS. So I'm very sensitive to certain ingredients and products, but I was really pleased that this particular cooling effect just doesn't have a scent or a taste, and it didn't dry my lips out at all. In fact, it feels really, really nice. And menthol is listed as an ingredient, and normally that really dries my lips out. This is the first product with menthol where I haven't had that experience, so I'm pleasantly surprised about that. Very interestingly, fragrance is listed halfway down the ingredients list, and I can't smell a damn thing. And let me tell you, I'm probably the most sensitive when it comes to scents and tastes out of anyone you'll meet. So if I can't smell it, then I feel like you probably can't smell it either. As for the pigment, these start out kind of sheer medium pigment, I would say, and then as you layer them, you can definitely build them up. But that's on my fair to light skin with cool undertones. My friend Michaela, who's casually extra on Instagram, applied one of the shades and she said it was almost clear on her. I think it was Serenity or Joy, but it like really did not show up on her whatsoever. So if you have medium to deep skin, you might actually be surprised that these aren't as pigmented as all of the marketing is making it seem. But on my fair to light skin, the pigment is like medium buildable. As for the longevity, the glossy kind of balmy quality of them fade like a normal gloss. Like I would say, I don't know, maybe an hour, especially if you're eating or drinking, that'll definitely fade and like swipe right off. But the color stains a lot. And I filmed my Instagram reel this morning and my arm is still stained from all of the colors. So the color is definitely going to stick around for a long time. And last night when I was eating dinner, the glossiness totally faded from my lips, but the color stayed for about 4 hours after dinner, which is really impressive. The only thing to note about that is that the pigment does get a little bit patchy as it fades. It doesn't fade in like a perfectly even kind of way. But I find that if I just pop a lip balm on top of that, that it smooths it right over and it looks great. And compared to something like the Victoria Beckham lip tints, these are much, much easier to layer. The Victoria Beckham lip tints kind of apply like a gel and then they set like a stain and they totally dry down. And with the Victoria Beckham lip tints, if you try to do a second layer, they can just get really patchy. But with these, I like that they said in the description that these are meant to be layered, and that's absolutely true. You can layer it and it doesn't get patchy. It really does seem to melt with the lips and become one with the skin. So if you're someone who likes more pigment, it's good that you can layer these. Another formula I could compare this to are the Dior lip tattoos. Those kind of applied like a thin gel and then they set down just like the Victoria Beckham lip tints. Although those had a thinner formula and I honestly found them to be a little bit patchy and overrated. So I think these are much, much better than the Dior lip tattoos, and I prefer them to the Victoria Beckham lip tints. I truly just think that the Rare Beauty formula is more cosmetically elegant, and I think it looks better and feels better on the lips. Oh, and the YSL Glossy Stains. All of these are kind of similar products, with the Victoria Beckham and the Dior ones being products that set down, and the YSL, the Rare Beauty, the Romand, all of those remaining a little bit glossy on the lips. And then the last reference point I have is the new Kaja Jelly Stain tints. I don't know what they're called, and I didn't receive them in PR, but my friend Dev did, and she said these look exactly like that. And I know that Kaja also tends to have pretty affordable prices, around the same as Rare Beauty, at least in terms of brands that are sold at Sephora. So maybe I'll have to do a comparison with those. And also, I think it's important to mention that these are not the kind of product you reach for when you have chapped lips. Like, this is not something that you go into really needing hydration. I think you will be disappointed if you want something that's really going to nourish your lips. These are not that. But one of the ways I love wearing it, actually, let me get a lip balm. Okay, so this is my Pacifica vegan collagen lip balm. This is how I was wearing this color all last night. Now that the glossiness faded, just add a little lip balm. That was too much. I mentioned a little lip balm. Just pop on a little bit of lip balm and that prevents the color from getting a little bit patchy. And now it'll last much longer and be way more hydrating and comfortable than if you were just wearing that on its own. So if you really do want this product, but you want something that's gonna nourish your lips, maybe just get one, wipe it off so you're left with the stain, and pop a balm on top. But if you're not really looking for something that's hydrating and occlusive on the lips, then I think you'll be happy just with the tinted lip oils alone. I just wish they weren't named tinted lip oil. They should be called something like the Rare Beauty Tinted Jelly Gloss. Like that would make sense. No, the Rare Beauty Tinted Jelly Stain. Like that would have been a perfect name for it. And the last thing I have to say is just a note on stan culture. You know, it's not something I'm super familiar with. Like I know big fandoms are very powerful online, but I tend to stay far away from those. But what was interesting was when I went to purchase one, the second it dropped at Sephora, there were already 3 pages of reviews just from people who hyped up Selena Gomez and hadn't even tried the product and instantly gave it 5 stars because they like her. And that really bothers me. Like it skews reviews for people, it's immature, and I know that people have good intentions and they just wanted to hype Selena Gomez up, which I think is really beautiful. But my beauty consumer brain is very annoyed by that because it skews the rating system. Not that any rating systems online are trustworthy anyways, but it's just frustrating because if you click verified purchases on Sephora, you still just get people who haven't even tried the product and are just hyping up Selena Gomez. So if you're a stan of anyone, please don't do that. I hope you like this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below and I'll try to get to all of them. And if you like this video, I hope you'll subscribe and please give it a thumbs up. It really helps YouTube to know to push my video out to more people. Just making that tiny little gesture for a YouTuber can really make a big impact. So it's very much appreciated when you do it. And wherever you are, I hope you're having an awesome day and I'll see you in the next one.